Scotland should be an independent country.
Thank you very much. And like Claire, can I thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank all of you for coming along as well. I want to say a few things about why I think it's important for me, and I think for everyone in Scotland, that we vote yes next year. And maybe a little bit of context for that might be helpful. I haven't always supported independence. In fact, for very many years, as the child and growing up in part of a family that was a strong Labour supporting family, a strong trade unionist family, actually independence never really featured as much of a discussion topic. And when it did, it was considered to be a distraction, considered to be something that took us away from the real issues, the really important issues of jobs and fairness and decent wages and decent standards of living. But what changed my mind, in truth, is two things. First of all, my experience as part of government, and alongside that, my experience as a political advisor as part of government. And it did it in two ways. I saw, as part of the Scottish Parliament, as part of that Scottish Government, what could be achieved with the powers that we had. That we could take a different route in terms of education, in terms of health, and law and order, a different path that was closer to what people in Scotland wanted and believed in. We could try and make sure that you got access to higher and further education on the basis of your ability to learn, not on the basis of your ability to pay. We could try and make sure that our National Health Service was protected and was a National Health Service that was there. Yes, it might need to be reformed, but it was there as a caring, innovative, clinically superior service that was there when people needed it, regardless of where they lived or what their circumstances were. And we could make sure that the whole idea of safety on our streets, not just dealing with national organised crime, serious drug crime, but actually community safety that was really mattered to people, we could make sure that we had enough police officers to be able to deliver that kind of service. So when we had the powers, I could see that we could make a positive difference, and a difference that was different from what was coming at us out of Westminster. But the other thing that changed my mind and made me start to think about it was the other experience as part of that Scottish Government in the early 2000s. And that was also seeing where we didn't make a difference, where we didn't, for example, stand up against the detention of young children in Dungavel simply because they were the children of asylum seekers. A shameful, inhuman, and utterly reprehensible act. And why did we not stand up against that? Because we were part of a government that was part of a United Kingdom party that was in government at Westminster, and God forbid that we would ever embarrass them. So I saw two sides of that particular coin, and I began to think, where does our best bet lie? Where is our best choice to continue to make the kinds of decisions that we want for Scotland, that we want to create the kind of country we want to live in? Does it lie in our own hands through our own Parliament? Or does it lie to continue to have limited independence through those powers, but at the end of the day, the economic conditions, the welfare state, the stance we take internationally, what we do with our armed forces, will be decided by a government in Westminster? That in the 42 years I have been able to vote in a general election, I have only got the government I voted for 3 times. And I have to say, at least one of those occasions was a disappointment. And in the intervening years, what did we get? We got policies that the people of Scotland did not vote for. So for me, the decision about whether or not we should be independent does come down to those 3 pillars that Blair talked about. The democratic one. We should get the government that we as a majority of people in Scotland vote for. We don't. we should be able to control the tools that would allow us to be a prosperous country. We are a country rich in talent, in our people and in our resources. If we were independent right at this very minute, we would be the 8th richest country in the world. For each of the last 30 years, we've taken more in tax and contributed more in tax that comes from earning to the Treasury than any other part of the UK. So we have the capacity to be prosperous in our talent, in our hard work, in our natural resources, and in how far we've come already. And the third pillar is just straightforward fairness. Because we may be, if we were independent right at this very minute, the 8th richest country in the world, but we're actually part of the 4th most unequal country in the Western world. That is shameful. I find that shameful. All those resources that you create, that I create, that people like us create, are not shared equally. That we still have children in poverty. We still have, in fact, increasingly, numbers of people who are using food banks. People in work, people earning, and because of a whole raft of welfare policies, taxation policies, what increasingly is happening is that people who are rich are getting richer, and the rest of us are struggling more and more each day. And yet, if you look at what we have done as a country through our Scottish Parliament, we have promoted fairness and equity as best as we can. So it is about choice. As Blair said, and Ellen said before, those of us who support independence, some are in political parties, some, like me, are in none. It is not a party political issue. It is a question of choice. Really important choice for each of us that matters not just for us, but for the children we're bringing up, for the families they will have in the future. What kind of country do we want? And how do we think we're best going to get there? Will we best get there on the basis of a track record of a Scottish Parliament that has, with all its faults and with all the things that it gets wrong from time to time, and all the times that you rant at the telly because you think they've done something stupid, nonetheless, we trust more than we trust Westminster, and a Scottish Parliament that has a track record of being closest in its decisions to what we want? Or do we stay as part of Westminster, which doesn't have that kind of track record? So this, for me, is about choice. I don't think there is any question that we could be independent. We have the capacity, we have the resources, we have the wealth, most importantly, we have the talent. Should we be independent? Yes, I think we should. Because our best bet lies in our own hands. And that's why I support independence.
Thanks for that. Jeane, you would like to come in?
I just wanted to make a couple of points. Just on the last thing, I actually think some of those questions are also best addressed to people who think we should stay as part of the Union. Because they really do have to justify to us what is the gain. Because what you're describing, and the lady at the back described, is a benefit system that is increasingly founded on the basis of profit. Those folks from Atos who do that assessment do as many as they can because that's the basis on which they get paid. Our health service is not founded on the basis of profit. Our health service is founded on the basis of delivering the best quality of clinical care to the person that needs it when they need it, regardless of any other circumstance. And for me, our benefit system should be founded on the same principle. So my question is as much to those who want us to stay as part of the Union. Please tell me where the gain is. For me, for my family, for children, for grandchildren, and for the rest of our society, to continue to be part of a system that is increasingly founded on individual greed and profit. I just want to make a couple of points. I've got friends too who don't like Alex Salmond, and would have said to me exactly the same thing. The fact of the matter is, though, that I know that they voted for him and his party in 2 consecutive Scottish elections, because when it came to the bit, it doesn't actually matter whether you like him or you don't like him. What matters in those elections was whether or not you trusted him and his team and his party to run Scotland better than you trusted any other party. And overwhelmingly, particularly in the last election, a majority of people did. And so I think Blair's right. There is a bit of this which is a kind of deliberate ploy that is used. I think it's a bit insulting, actually, to suggest that all of us only make these decisions on the basis of whether we like somebody or don't like somebody. That's not how we make decisions, and in fact, the Scottish electorate has proven itself election after election after election to be really much more sophisticated and much more knowledgeable and much more nuanced than many a politician allows it or credits us with being. So I don't think it matters too much whether people like Alex Salmond or not, whether more women dislike him than men or whatever. The fact is, and the statistics show it, is that more people trust the Scottish Government to make better decisions they agree with more than they trust Westminster, and not just on things that they're currently making decisions on, like health or education or law and order, but also decisions on welfare, on economics. And when you look at those figures, you think the majority of people in Scotland trust the Scottish Government to make decisions, better decisions they agree with more than they trust Westminster across the piece. It is one small step now from believing that, from trusting that, to saying we trust that government or any government in Scotland to lead us in an independent country. And that's the flip we need to make with people. And the final thing I'd say is this, and it's about Labour supporters and Labour voters. I know an awful lot of folk, as you would expect I would, who are Labour voters and supporters and members. And honest to God, if all of them who tell me, I'm voting yes, Jeane, but don't say anything, right, would just do it, and if one or two of them would just say it, then we wouldn't be having that kind of discussion. They will vote for what they think is the right thing for their country, and Labour voters and supporters, if they share nothing else, do share a strong sense of social justice and democratic fairness. So I believe they will vote. Part of my job and the job of the rest of us is to get more and more of them to say so publicly and get rid of this notion that a vote for independence is a vote for the Scottish National Party. No, it's not. That fight comes in 2016 when the parties in an independent Scotland have to convince us which one of them will be the best government.
Thank you.
I guess the only thing I'd want to say is to your point, because I have some familiarity with those contracts, as well as the way in which the contracts were awarded to provide support to refugees. And when those contracts were awarded, very well able, qualified, skilled, located in their community Scottish organisations with a really good track record of providing help and support for people looking for employment, or in the case of refugees, people looking to settle here and make their lives here, didn't succeed. And the reason they didn't succeed had nothing to do with their ability, the professionalism of their staff, their success rate, but everything to do with how they stacked the economic case. And the companies that got the contracts stacked the economic case in such a way that they could come in cheaper, make money, and provide a very poor service. And it's not dissimilar to the Atos situation. So there's something about an approach that says when people are at their most vulnerable, when people are in need, What we'll do is we'll work out the best way to exploit them. That makes me very angry, but I also think goes utterly against the grain of what we're about in this country. But we can't change that unless we have the powers sitting in Edinburgh to be able to change it for us and at our behest. And you just keep giving more and more reasons why independence is the only way we're going to get the kind of country that we'd be proud to live in.
Okay, can I ask Jeane to come briefly in this as well?
Yeah, I just want to suggest 3 things that are possible in an independent
Scotland that aren't possible in Scotland right at the minute. The first is how we use VAT and how we use that to encourage or discourage particularly small businesses. The second is how we use airport tax to either open up access to people and to goods both in and out of the country, to encourage that or to discourage it, which is what we have just now. And the third is Blair's point. We have more top universities per head of population in Scotland than anywhere else in the world. We need to be able to harness that intellect, that research, those ideas, and turn them into businesses that grow in Scotland. To be able to do that, we need to be able to manipulate economic tools like taxation, like employment legislation, and yes, like welfare benefits, none of which we control just now. So you're absolutely right. We need to generate wealth in order to fairly distribute wealth. We've got the talent, we just need the economic tools to be able to do that properly. I guess I only want to reinforce that. I think at the end of the day, it's up to each one of us. One of the things that's most important about this campaign is our individual capacity, each of us, to change the minds of others. So it is up to each of us to, there is the famous, I know Dennis has said it, I know the First Minister has said it, if we all talk to just one person, then we've got the vote cracked. But it is genuinely the case. And for me, it's not just about the importance of each of us trying to convince somebody else to support independence, because we would then get a yes vote. Yes, we would, and that is critical to being able to do any of the things that any one of us might want to do if we closed our eyes and imagined Scotland better in just one respect. But by doing that, by having these kind of meetings, by the campaign being the way it is, on the 19th of September, we are going to have a more politically educated, politically engaged and politically enthusiastic population in Scotland than we've had for some time. And that will make for better governments all the way down the line. So we've got a lot to win here, and we just need to talk to each other and make sure we can do it.
Thank you.